when I think about leadership, I think about all of the leaders and the mentors that I've had, and I take something from each of them. Sometimes it is something I would like to model, something that I appreciate in their leadership style. And then sometimes it's, this is not who I want to be. And this is what needs to change in order for all of us, especially women, to move forward. So I've been with the New York City Police Department for 15 years. And over the past couple of years, I have risen to one of the highest levels in the organization, right beneath the police commissioner. And that has, been something I'm very proud of, but it is also something that's been very challenging at times. So I wanted to talk about two things. The first is the concept of imposter syndrome. I'm not sure if everyone is familiar with that. It's a term that is, was coined in the 1970s in the United States by two psychologists. And it was really about work that was written about imposter phenomenon in high achieving women. And the idea is that you have feelings of self-doubt, that you're incompetent despite your education, your experience, and your accomplishments, and you sometimes feel like a fraud. And more recently, there's been two researchers from Harvard, Rishika Tolshan and Jodianne Bury, hopefully I'm pronouncing their names correctly, which have said, stop telling women that they have imposter syndrome. So the question is, why does it exist in the first place? Because we do have it, I have it, and I'll talk about that. But a lot of the way that we've talked about it over time is it puts the blame on an individual without accounting for the historical and cultural contexts that are foundational to how it manifests in women of color, as well as white women. So it directs our view toward fixing women at work instead of fixing the places where women work. The second thing I'll touch on is a credibility gap. So, credibility is determined by the level at which you are competent, you're efficient, you're knowledgeable in your particular area. And, if people don't find you credible, it's really difficult to be good at your job. So what is credibility based on? Trustworthiness, reliability, integrity, all of these things. And for me, what happens when these two intersect? So I've always been challenged with what I call imposter syndrome, or what the research terms this. For me, I moved up fast in an organization, and people would always say to me, oh, you've done so well for yourself, it's great. And I would always say, I've done well because I was in the right place at the right time, and I had the right opportunity. And underneath it all, I never felt like I truly deserved to be where I was, that I hadn't earned it, that I had been given opportunities because of the people I knew, the places I had been. And when I took on this role in particular about 2 years ago, diversity, equity, and inclusion is a broad swath of work and many facets. I can only speak for the United States. It's relatively new in law enforcement. In academia and corporate America in the US, we often talk about DEI efforts, diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it's not language that we used in the NYPD. So when we created this position, my predecessor, a Black female who I absolutely adore, we created it, she started it, and on her way out, she said, I think you should apply. I struggled with that. I did, and I got the job. And right away, someone said to me, well, they shouldn't have put a white woman in the job. You have a credibility gap right away. So how are you going to address that? And I knew this. I knew it was going to be a challenge because, at least here, most of the people in DEI space do tend to be people of color. So here I am a few months into my new position, and I'm not only struggling with imposter syndrome and feeling like maybe I don't deserve to be where I am, but also with a credibility gap in my new position. So it was very, very difficult couple of months where I really had to be very vulnerable and very introspective and very aware of my blind spots. Where are my guardrails that are keeping me from being able to truly embrace who I am in this new role? I spent a lot of time thinking about this and trying to learn as much as possible and trying to grow in this role. And I'm in a much better place. And I think it's because I realized a couple of things about myself and also about, where I needed to continue to learn and grow. Because to me, growth is one of the most important facets of leadership. And when I say leadership, I don't necessarily mean the people at the top of an organization. We're all leaders in our own right, if you want to be. It's what impact are you having on others? So there was a couple of things. I mentioned vulnerability and really, people, especially in a male-dominated environment like law enforcement, where we have over 50,000 employees, and at least on our uniformed police officer side, it's only 19% women. So, I'm often in the room I'm often the only woman in the room with several men. But I had to be very vulnerable, which is not something I'm good at because it requires too much internal for me at times. And I had to be incredibly introspective about who I am, what motivates me, and where I want to go. I think I'm probably one of the most candid people in the organization. I do not sit back. I speak up. I'm straightforward, and I'm very honest about who I am and what's important to me. But it took me a long time to get there because it's really, really hard to stand up. But silence is not always an option because that speaks for itself as well. So I think honesty is my ability to be candid and straightforward about myself and about the role I'm in and the reality of policing. And in the United States, especially over the past couple of years when we've had George Floyd, the death of George Floyd, we've had racial and social unrest, we've had protests, all of these things that have been happening that not only impact the United States, but the larger law enforcement. So that's been a critical piece for me as well. I also learned that I don't always embrace change well. And I need to start viewing change as a gift and as an opportunity and understanding that there's one constant in life, right? Change. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. It's how you adapt to it and how you make that work for you. That says a lot about your ability to be resilient. And that's certainly something that I am as well. And then, really one of the things I think that I've definitely thought more about is, caring about the people that you work with and the people that you work for. So, respect, we talk about respect a lot in the NYPD, and the greatest gift I think you can give someone is to listen and to actually listen to them. And that is not something that we often do well, especially in law enforcement when we are in such a position of power over other people. We don't listen. And my son accuses me of that from time to time, and that's been a valuable lesson as well, because he often says to me, you're not listening to me, you're not hearing me. So that's my story and part of who I am. And I wanted to share part of my struggle with you and part of what I see as a struggle for many women, especially those in leadership roles. And it's really, what are we telling ourselves? And how are other people viewing us? And how do we, You know, what are we aware of? And then the ability to be vulnerable, to be authentic, to be honest, to be introspective, to have a vision and follow through with it. And that's Tanya, and that's my leadership. I know that I'm the right person in the right place at the right time for this position, but it's taken me a really long time to get there.